Hello and welcome back. Today I'm partaking in that little habit of mine of reviewing the sequel to something that I reviewed the previous year. Today I'm reviewing Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2 The Sith Lords. Produced by LucasArts, but strangely enough not developed by the makers of the previous game, BioWare. LucasArts tried to ask BioWare to develop it, but BioWare were like, nah. So instead, LucasArts got a new and up-and-coming developer, Obsidian Software, to develop it, and in only 14 months. But that's enough background. Let's get into the story of KOTOR 2. The game takes place about 5 years after the previous one, when you wake up in an abandoned mining facility and find out that you had been rescued by some miners after they found the Ebon Hawk, only for the miners to be slaughtered by their own droids. And you thankfully find this out via
random documents and audio logs. We find them stuck to notice boards, we find them under dogs.
While investigating the facility, you bump into a droid called T3, you know from the previous game, as well as a Force-sensitive mentor type by the name of Kreia, who was on the Ebon Hawk with you. You also bump into your standard rogue gunslinger type, who's also locked up in the facility for some reason. Kreia informs you that you were once a Jedi who fought alongside Revan during the Mandalorian Wars, and somehow lost your connection to the Force and were cast out by the Jedi Council. Kreia offers to help you reconnect to the Force. You fight your way through the rogue droids heading towards the Ebon Hawk, only for another ship to dock at the facility, full of Sith assassins led by Darth Sion, a seemingly unkillable individual who seems to have a personal beef with Kreia and is also one crusty boy. You and crew escape aboard the Ebon Hawk, but Darth Sion's ship manages to blow up the mining facility in the pursuit. You then land at the nearby planet of Telos, where you are immediately arrested by the government. Yeah, turns out the mining facility that got blown up was their main source of fuel. And without that fuel source, the space station and the population aboard will eventually crash into the planet below. You are eventually let off after the government manages to figure out that you weren't the one that destroyed the mining facility, only to discover that now the Ebon Hawk has been stolen. There is a factional dispute aboard the space station, and after helping out one of the factions, they lend you their shuttlecraft so you can head off and find the Ebon Hawk. Unfortunately, very soon after, the shuttle is shot down by a bunch of mercenaries, and you bump into a former Republic engineer that apparently knows you from the Mandalorian Wars. That shuttle then gets shot down as well, and you are captured by a bunch of women wearing white fluffy hoodies who take you into an ancient structure. These hoodie women turn out to be working for a Jedi Master, who reveals that the Jedi have been slaughtered by a new group of Sith Lords, and that the remaining Jedi Masters have been scattered across the galaxy. And as one of the few remaining Jedi, you are given the task to find the rest of them, and in return she gives back the Ebon Hawk. You now have a choice of 4 worlds to journey to. There's Dantooine, where you save a bunch of local residents from some mercenaries, and find an ex-Jedi turned Republic scholar in the remains of the temple from the first game. Nar Shaddaa, where you confront a bunch of bounty hunters that have been hired by a local crime lord and recruit one of those bounty hunters to your team. Korriban, where you explore the remains of the Sith Academy and have a close encounter with Darth Sion while you're there. And Onderon, where you help stop a military coup being supported by the Sith and team up with a Mandalorian who wants to help reunite his people on the moon of Daxam. Along the way, you are briefly attacked by a Sith assassin, and after defeating her and sparing her life, she decides to join your team and reveals that she is the apprentice of Darth Nihilus, a Sith Lord who is kind of like a hybrid between a ring wraith and a vampire, who drains the Force out of others, and is responsible for the destruction of the Jedi Order, as well as the destruction for his apprentice's homeworld. After travelling to the four worlds and fighting the three Jedi Masters, the one on Korriban was already dead when you found them. You return to Dantooine with them, where they reveal that the reason they cast you out of the Order is because you are a wound in the Force. After the destruction you brought upon Malachor 5 using the mass shadow generator, caused loss of life so high that it has permanently damaged the Force, and since you were at the centre of that damage, you became a wound in the Force, with the power to control and manipulate the Force and wills of others. The only solution that the remaining Jedi Masters have come to is that you must be severed from the Force permanently in order to save the galaxy. Then Kreia shows up to the meeting and kills them all. She reveals that she was once one of the mentors of Revan, but after Revan betrayed the Jedi Order and turned to the dark side, she was blamed and cast out of the Order. She then travelled to Malachor 5's ruins to discover an ancient Sith temple there. There she decided to become a Sith herself, taking on the name Darth Treya. She recruited two wounds in the Force, Darth Nihilus and Darth Sion, as her apprentices, only for the apprentices to turn on their master, sever her link to the Force, and cast her off Malachor. After pursuing Treya to Telos, you arrive at the Jedi Temple, only to have to fight the Jedi Master there, who has been driven crazy by a bunch of Sith holocrons she had stashed away. After defeating her, she reveals that Treya has long since gone, and she has managed to trick Darth Nihilus into thinking that there are loads of Jedi on the planet, and is currently bombarding the planet from space aboard his flagship, the Maelstrom. You manage to sneak aboard the Maelstrom, kill Darth Nihilus. Turns out your wound in the Force power manages to counteract his, escape the Maelstrom and blow it up. You then head off to Malachor 5, and after arriving there you confront Darth Sion and manage to convince him to let go of his pain and finally die. You then confront Treya, who reveals that she plans on creating a wound in the Force so large that it will destroy the Force and possibly all life in the galaxy as well. However, one of your allies has managed to use their droid to reactivate the mass shadow generator's remains that will soon destroy the planet. After the final battle with Darth Treya, she has a lengthy conversation with you about the repercussions of your actions and how they will affect others. You then escape aboard the Ebon Hawk with your friends. Malachor explodes and then credits. The gameplay is pretty much the same as its predecessor, going on side quests, helping out allies, battling enemies in a combat system that is somewhere between turn-based and action RPG. The only major additions this game has is you can learn multiple lightsaber stances from the Jedi Masters, and there is a larger emphasis on crafting items. Oh, and HK-47's back!
Love is making a shot to the knees of a target 120 kilometers away using an Aerotech sniper rifle with a tri-light scope.
The graphics are pretty much the same as its predecessor too, although a bit more dark and foreboding in places. The music's alright too. A few tracks have been reused from the previous games, but the new ones made are very well done and give the appropriate atmosphere while still remaining iconically Star Warsy. game's alright. While the graphics aren't exactly the best for the time, the gameplay is pretty much the same as its predecessor, and it feels a bit rushed in places. Although since this game had just over a year for it to be made, can you really blame the developers? But the story, characters and atmosphere are where this game really stands out. So if you're looking for a unique addition to the Star Wars franchise, I say give this game a go. Well, that's all from me. See you guys next time. Of the review. Only to there is a factional distribution. Steal their shuttlecraft. There's Dantooine, where you help out a bunch of locals. While still moo. So if you're Yuki you